Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. My name is Sandy Butchers, and on this channel I talk about art and illustration and creativity, and sometimes the wonderfully chaotic reality of working as a professional artist. So before we jump into today's video, real quick, if you enjoy art-focused content, behind the scenes looks at illustration work, or you just want to hang out with someone who spends way too much time drawing instead of sleeping, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you really want to support the channel and what I do, you can check out my Patreon, where I share extra content, and you can also get art merch 4 times per year and a whole lot of other fun stuff. So your support there genuinely helps me keep doing what I love and maybe even afford me an extra cup of tea. So alright, with all that out of the way, let's jump into today's topic because I'm kind of excited to talk about this one. Welcome back to another butcher shop. So today I want to talk about life as a commission artist, and specifically what kinds of projects you might work on, and how you can end up in places you never really planned to be in the best way possible. Now keep in mind, I can only give you examples from personal experience, which is in that way limited. Like, I've not worked in any game studios or worked on computer games or anything. So really my experience are just based on what I have worked on over the last, well, let's say 10 years. So yeah, if I miss something, or if you feel like, I've skipped on something, do let me know in the comments down below. And I also did mention, like, sometimes you come into a place that you never really plan to be in, because really that's the truth. When I first started doing art, I never really sat down and said to myself, yeah, one day I'm going to work in the board game industry or in the card game industry or in whatever industry. I had a lot of dreams and a lot of hopes, but I never really made any conscious decisions that led to where I am now, other than the one moment I decided that I wanted to become an artist professionally. So anything else that happened after that decision wasn't necessarily part of the plan. But somehow, through a mix of opportunity and timing and hard work, and probably a bit of dumb luck, most likely a bit of dumb luck, I found myself suddenly working on card games and tabletop role-playing games. These were all larger projects than I ever imagined I was going to work on, while I was just drawing for fun. And honestly, this really kind of is freaking cool. But let's start with the basics, because I'm already getting way ahead of myself. What does it mean to be a commission artist? So a commission artist is someone who creates artwork for clients. So instead of just drawing whatever you feel like, although you can still do that, I mean, I personally do it as well. I walk this sort of thin line between drawing what I really personally enjoy making, and making what my clients are asking me to do. But yeah, so instead of drawing what you feel like, you work on an artist. And what you hear in the background is my dog, by the way, because she really wants to play and she does not give a damn about me recording any audio. So alright, let me pause this recording for a quick second and let's, I don't know.
A few moments later.
Alright, let's try that again. Where was I? Yes, being a commission artist. So what could that mean? You could, for example, be working on illustrations for a game, or you could, work on character portraits or book covers or marketing art and concept art, there are 100 million ways that you can sort of sell your skills as an artist to clients. But basically what it means is someone comes to you with an idea, a brief or a project, and they say, hey, we need art for this. Can you do it? And of course, that's when you say, sure, let's talk. Because, to be honest, working as a commission artist also means that you need to communicate. You know, you really need communication skills with your clients, you know, to make this work. Because, and this is personally why I love working on commission. A person has an idea in their mind, and it is your job to take that from their mind and put that onto paper. So the first thing you'll have to learn as a commission artist is asking questions, you know, and then to learn which questions you should ask, because I can ask anybody about the weather, you know, or about, you know, what's their favorite holiday destination, although sometimes those things might be relevant. I get it. But really asking the right questions makes your job so much easier. Because once you get the feeling behind a project, you know, once you understand what this other person, what this client wants to communicate, it is then up to you to find a way to design something, you know, that actually translate that feeling into an image. And again, this is really what I love about my job, is to pick people's brains and to use that information that I've gathered to turn it into a picture. And the best part is when people see that, and when they just say, how could you read my mind so well? I'm not a mind reader, spoilers, but I do think that over time I have learned to ask the right questions. Things like, and I really suck at, you know, coming up with examples. I should have prepared this, I should have written a script for this, but I did not. The things you want to ask is really emotions, you know, general vibes, maybe different color palettes, you know. Have they thought about what they want you to make before reaching out to you? And if they have, basically you want to know everything that they have thought of. So it doesn't really matter in what sector or what branch you work in, you know, whether it's games or portraits or book covers. These questions are universal because your job at the end of the day sort of remains the same. And I totally understand that, you know, there are designers out there who really want to punch me in the face right now, because a job as a designer is completely different from a job as an illustrator. But the process of asking questions to get what you need in order to get started remains the same. Are you guys still following me? Anyway, so yeah, somebody comes to you with a project and you've talked and you've, you know, accepted the commission, which honestly, you know, is kind of the dream. One of the best parts about being a commission artist, apart from, you know, the satisfaction of people when they see what you've made, is also the variety. You know, no two projects are ever the same. Some days you might be designing characters, other days you're illustrating environments, sometimes you're working with very strict guidelines, and sometimes a client just says, hey, here's the vibe, go nuts. And of course, you know, that's the best case scenario, which actually kind of was the case for this cat project called Cat-A-Clysm. I've talked about it in some of my videos before, and I will probably be talking about it a lot more in the future because I am about to draw, you know, 23 cats. But basically what happened when this commission came in was the client basically said, hey, I love your style, I love your creature designs, so basically you do you, you know, do what you're good at, and as long as they're cats, you know, and they fit the description that I'm giving you, go ham, you know, do what you do best. And honestly, it's it's fantastic. You know, I love working like this, and I do realize that that is not a common luxury. You know, very often as an artist, you work within boundaries. That is, of course, natural. That's part of the job. But sometimes the boundaries also affect how you work, or how you make what you're asked to make. And in this case, those boundaries are really wide. You know, I can do whatever I want to do, again, as long as I adhere to the original description of the character. So yeah. But there are a lot of different things to still keep in mind. Because even though I have this sort of, carte blanche on what I want to do, games or art for games isn't just decoration. The art becomes a part of how any game feels. And I can imagine this being the same for different types of products. It's the same with book covers. It needs to convey how the book feels. So in this case, the card game, the art really helps define the tone of the game. The world, the characters, and the emotional hook. And really, once you see the whole thing come together, it's incredibly rewarding. Funnily enough, a lot of my recent work has landed within this sort of card game or game industry, not computer games. And I will just repeat that because, yes, it has been a long time dream to work as like a keyframe artist on some sort of game. But I have never found any opportunities, and I kind of grew up, I guess, telling myself that, that's way out of my league. But now, if I just look at, if I take a step back and I look at where I am today, there are no regrets. There are zero regrets, and there is actually a lot of pride because I am doing a lot of things that I absolutely love doing in a branch that I never saw coming. So this whole Cat-A-Clysm game is the second time that I was commissioned for a card game. And later this year, there's a third commission on its way for a TTRPG. I can't say anything about that quite yet, but this is where the whole, subscribe to the channel comes in, because I will be talking about this later on, probably around March or maybe April. So, alright, enough plugging. But yeah, so suddenly I'm getting a lot of commissions for, different types of games. And it still kind of blows my mind because these aren't tiny throwaway projects, These are full games that people are going to play and collect and bring to the table with friends. And knowing that your art is going to be shuffled into decks, and being passed around and stared at during some intense rule debates, that's just surreal in a really, really good way. So, alright, let's talk about, what it is like working on these types of larger projects. A couple of things that I've learned are all revolving around consistency and planning and communication, as I talked about before. Also, you're looking at deadlines and revisions, and overall, a lot of organization. Now, the first thing that I really want to touch upon is consistency. And to be completely honest with you, I have always feared the word consistency, because I never felt like, I was consistent, not as a person, but also very much not as an artist. And I know this is going to sound like a little detour, or an anecdote, but it's not. A lot of people in the past have asked me, hey, if you enjoy storytelling and you enjoy drawing, why don't you make your own comic? And I remember that my answer was always somewhere along the lines of, I don't think my art is consistent enough to do that. I've always feared that if I had to draw the same character twice, let alone for a full comic, they would look different in each and every frame. And I've always sort of felt like, that kind of consistency is first of all necessary in a comic. And also very much that, that was not something that I was good at. However, over time, I've kind of learned that consistency expresses itself in a lot of different ways. There is, of course, character consistency, where you draw the same thing over and over again and they look all more or less the same. But there's also consistency in style or techniques or, yeah, well, here's me again, having to find some examples on the fly. But you know what I mean. And I think if you've been around my channel a bit longer, you have seen that pretty much every video is in some way an exploration or an experiment. And I've always felt like, all those experiments and all those tryouts and all these different ways in which I try to work and make things work were signs of inconsistency. And it has only been recently where I've sort of come to terms with how I work as an artist, because yeah, I do experiment, and I think that's the whole point of art at this point. If you don't experiment and if you don't try out new things, you never evolve beyond that what you currently are. So I think process and experimentation and doing things a little bit differently also is very much part of being an artist. But that said, you need to be consistent, and you need to really discuss what kind of consistency your client requires. Because, for example, if this Cat-A-Clysm game would be the same cat 23 times, but in 23 different contexts, I am not sure if I would have accepted this project, or if it, or if I did, how it would have turned out. Because, like I said, I'm not very good at character consistency. So again, it is very important to communicate with that. And I know I sometimes feel like I'm repeating myself, but that is only because and when something truly is important and it makes up such a large part of what you do and how you work as an artist in general. That I just care about these topics. So yeah, maybe I repeat them sometimes, but I do that with love. But yeah, overall, you're not just drawing a cool image, or you're not drawing one cool image. You are building a visual system when you're working on these larger projects. Characters need to feel like they belong in the world of the game or in the world of the project. Art needs to work together across multiple objects or pages, or in this case, cards. Your style, as much as, the way you work, needs to be consistent, even weeks or sometimes months apart. I've had it with another project where I illustrated a book with my good pal M.K. Gibson. We illustrated his first Technomancer novel, and I think at this point it's 2 years ago. 1 or 2 years, I can never remember. But that project required 40 illustrations of the same characters. So I used a visual reference that I found, or that we sort of created for this particular character. So the character consistency was all right in the end. But what we did discover was, when I was at the end of the project, when I finished the 40th illustration and I looked back at the first 2 or 3, there was a pretty big inconsistency in style and technique, because over those 40 illustrations, I had just gotten a lot better and a lot more efficient at what I did. So basically I had to go back, you know, and redo those first couple of illustrations, which would then lead to looking at your last illustrations and realizing that they now needed some love. So be aware of, you know, what could potentially happen there, because it is one thing to reflect on your work and see how things have evolved, but it is a whole other game when you jump into the rabbit hole and keep fixing and keep fixing and keep fixing. That is not a fun way to work. So keep an eye on yourself when you come into that position. Alright, now let's talk about this specific illustration, because this one is just fun. I kind of love him. This piece was created for the game, for the Cat-A-Clysm game, which first of all is an absolutely amazing name for a card game. It is a game that features a whole bunch of cats reimagined as D&D classes and subclasses. And yes, that is exactly as incredible as it sounds, because you've got magical cats and sneaky cats and of course barbarian cats. So this particular illustration features the barbarian. And listen, there is something inherently funny about taking the most rage-fueled, battle-hardened class in D&D and turning it into a cute, fluffy cat. You know, cats are sweet. I'm a cat person. I mean, I also have a dog, as you guys obviously learned at the beginning of this video. But I'm a cat person because they're cute, they're sweet, they always plan to take over the world, and they're just amazing. So what happens if you give a cat an axe and some muscles and, you know, a fierce stance? Suddenly that kitty turns into this sort of tiny murder machine with whiskers. So that immediately turned into the fun part of this illustration, leaning into that contrast, you know, make that cute and fluffy cat feel powerful and intimidating, while still being very obviously that cat. So first of all, of course, you know, I keep the heads. All the heads of all these characters are just cats. There's no mistaking. And something that I've also decided on, again, you know, referring back to consistency, is that each of these cats, and it doesn't matter how fierce they are, but their hands are just going to be fluffy stumps, to sort of, again, play with the contrast of fierce but also cute and fluffy. And yes, some of them will have claws or will have, you know, the visible sort of claw tips, but these hands are generally going to be fluffy stumps. But those are some very clear design choices that I make. The same thing goes for helmets or hats. You know, whenever a cat wears a hat, the ears go through the hat. So, you know, I kind of like, even now, when, you know, when I'm taking a step back and reflect upon things, how they're unpacking, consistency is key. Thank God I don't have to draw the same cat 23 times, but there are a couple of very obvious design choices that need to stay consistent throughout the entire project. Anyway, I digress. This particular illustration, I wanted to be funny in a way, so I've really exaggerated a lot of his proportions. He's very big, he's very chunky, he's a chunky boy. But like his shoulders are massive. You know, this cat is ready to destroy something, and I have no doubts that he can get it done. So I focused on, you know, that clear silhouette of him, and also very much the expressive face. And I know that, you know, cats are cats, so animals don't express their emotions the way we do as humans. So I kind of did what Disney does, is, you know, give the human emotions to the animal. So in this particular case, I've really focused a lot around the eyes. And if you've watched more of my videos, you know that, the eyes are literally the windows into the soul. I always start with the eyes because that is the moment you capture the soul of a creature. So this barbarian dude, he looks fierce. He's got this not angry, but ready look in his eyes. So yeah, character expression, very, very important. And like I said, the exaggerated features that sell us both his strength, but also his personality. The goal here wasn't necessarily realism, it was character. Games like this thrive on charm and on humor and memorable visuals. So if someone laughs when they draw this card, that's a win. That means I have done my job as an artist. So yeah, I mean, projects like this truly are the reason why I love working. Why I love doing what I do and why I love my job. These types of games don't take themselves too seriously, but they still care deeply, deeply about the quality of the artwork. So that's what life is like when you work as a commission artist. And that's kind of it for today's video. I hope this gave you a better look of what life is like as a commission artist, especially within the world of games, card games, board games, or general illustration work. And if you enjoyed this behind the scenes look, make sure to like this video and maybe even subscribe to the channel. But for now, let me know in the comments, have you ever considered doing commission work? Or what kind of art projects would you be most interested in? Let me know in the comments. I am curious, I want to know about you guys. I feel like I haven't met all of you, so talk to me. Once again, if you'd like to support the channel and see more of my work, don't forget to check out my Patreon. It genuinely means the world if you do. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.